Welcome, beautiful creatures, to the Lightness of Being podcast, where we celebrate the dance of life and explore ways to find joy, laughter, and lightness, even when faced with challenges. Join me, your host, Monika Stefanik, as we step into the light and discover a realm of potential and possibilities for greater ease in our lives. Let's laugh, learn, and grow together. Hi, Willis.
Hi. Are we doing it?
We are doing it.
Cool.
Welcome, beautiful beings, to, I think this is episode 11 of the Lightness of Being podcast, with this, our local magical wizard of the mycelial world.
I like
Willis
that title.
Mitchell. Yeah, I thought about that this morning. I was like, oh, that like came through in meditation. I was like, yeah, that's exactly who you are. Yeah, Willis, before you tell us a little bit about you, the first question I ask everyone is, what are you celebrating right now?
Gosh, the most current thing is like holding my inner child. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like just being really gentle and caring with that version of myself, and that's been really loud in the past couple of days. So
Yeah, yay, happy for you. Doing the same thing.
Yeah. Seems like it's time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, tell us about you. Who do you be in this world? What's the magic that you bring into this realm that we occupy?
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of like, what is this role that I'm playing, which I never had any intention to do. It was kind of just me following my passion into, and that was the main focus, was like, that's what happiness meant to me, was like following the passion. And so it's led me to this place where I'm able to connect people to like technology, which is medicine, like mushrooms and plants, that can bring them to a state of balance so that they can then start working on like whatever else is coming up for them. Yeah. And so that has led me into what is now a business, which I never intended to do either. It was like, oh, check out all these cool things that I love, and I learned this and da-da-da-da. And then people started having like all these amazing experiences, including myself. And then they're like, oh, you should put a label on this. And I was like, okay. And then that just like steamrolled into what I'm currently doing, which is like, the loving fungi. That's like the business. And it's also a way for me to access as many people as possible. Like my goal now, it's very clear, is to help as many people as I can before I exit. So that's that side. The other side is, I do a lot of work with people one-on-one, and it's super rewarding. And it's like, that's where like, it just fills me up of like getting to sit with somebody, really tap in, channel whatever needs to come through. And then with that, build medicine intuitively to the individual. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, those would be kind of like the main things that I am being right now.
Okay.
Other than that, I love to dance.
Yeah.
I like to be outside and pick mushrooms and be by the water and travel. I gain so much from travel. It's a big part of like me and like my astrological chart and all that.
Yeah, I love to travel too. We learn so much more from the world's experience than we do in school, and I've like experienced that so much directly, and I'm like, I will always put my money towards travel. Like, it's never wasted, because I'm like, that's where the main education is.
I agree. And it's kind of like, I don't know if we talked about this the other day, but the whole thing, like when you get the spirituality 101 and you get the beads and you got the clothing and maybe change your name or whatever it is, like there's no judgment there. I think we all go through it, but a big part of that too for me was like reading. Like reading so much, like as many books as I could, because I'm experiencing things firsthand, but really like after reading all those books, they all started to say the same thing, which was listen within, find a place, get quiet, and listen to that voice within. And so I think like travel is that too. It's like that opportunity to go be alone, listen, or be drawn to whatever that is, that next experience. That's that direct experience that I think we all need. That's like the process of evolution. Because you can sit and read this shit for days if you're not living it.
Are you actually integrating that, and are you actually living it? Yeah. I resonate so deeply. The travel piece is really interesting too, because I spent so much of my
younger adult life, it was part of how I defined and identified myself, right? As this traveler, as someone who just like goes and travels the world, which is amazing.
Got the bag, got the ego.
Yeah, got the ego, it's fine. But also like, I mean, yes, of course I was like, I want to go see this thing, but also like, I want to experience these cultures. So it's like, there was this mixture. But then when I started getting on my spiritual path and reading all the books and yes, realizing that like the message was like, okay, everything's in here. There was a push and pull with my ego where I was like, I think it was when I first went to yoga school at the ashram back in 2018, and it was like, okay, traveling outside is great, but also like the most important journey that you'll ever do is in here. And there was a kind of a death of me that's been slowly occurring over the last few years of like, you can still travel outwardly, Monika, that's beautiful, but also like, what's your intention with that? Like, are you doing it to escape? Which is what I did in the past, was like wanting to learn from the world and feeling a great pull, but also running away from my problems only to come back and have the same problems. So it's like once I started doing that journey inwards and realizing that travel doesn't have to look the way that my ego, my brain told me travel had to look like, I started to release and shed a lot and like come to peace within my own internal being. And so now getting to do this big journey has been so amazing and painful and and beautiful and all the things, but now I'm starting to come back and like find a balance of the external travel and the internal travel, but only after being able to come back here. But it was a big death of, I was like, no, I can't let that go. That's part of my identity. Like I am the girl that travels. Like this is who I am. So.
And those two things kind of like coincide, right? Like the external and the internal journey. And like once you, I guess like it comes back to me, for me, is to like listening, you know? And so like there's times where I've traveled just for pure joy and there's no judgment there, you know, and because I am that, whatever that role that I'm playing. And then there's like times where I'm like, you know, just fiddling around. Oh, this little thing pops up. Oh, I look at it, I start reading it and I'm like crying and shaking. I was like, oh, I guess I'm going there, you know, and that like listening versus thinking about, oh, it's this, based on what I read or did.
I saw this thing on Instagram and I have to go.
That's it, you know? And so it's like, are we really like listening? You know what I mean? And I found like this is a big part of like I feel like it's just become a part of like my teachings or like wisdom that I can share. Like the greatest gift I can give somebody is that like connection to their highest yes and no. Most people have no idea what that is, you know, and I find that sad, but it's like culturally, we're not taught to do this. We're not taught to feel, especially men, right? Like 33% higher suicide rate because we're taught not to feel, and that's held by the masculine and the feminine. You know what I mean? So, you know, the process of like really kind of dropping in and listening myself, learning that from somebody, like the body testing, muscle testing, awesome passageway. Mine is just like, you know, whatever it is, the question, the thing, holding it, like tapping, getting in our center, holding it, and then like standing up straight, bringing it right down to like in front of our belly button center, like 2 fingers down. That's our Dantian in Qigong, life force energy center. And so when we stand up and we're doing this, we hold it down to our belly. So say it's a question like, should I go on this trip? And holding my fist here, my stomach's either gonna move towards my hand or away from it. And if it moves towards it, it's a yes. Yeah. If it moves away from it, it's a no, right? And it's like with anything, if you want this to be really strong, then you practice it. If you want big muscles, go to the gym 3 to 5 days a week. Works great. With this, it's like connecting to
your
like,
life force, your chi. Yeah.
Big time. This is our creative life force, where women make babies, where men can use this to also make babies, so that not hold them. But yeah, just like creation in the world. And for me, my gut's always been super strong. You know, later on, I looked at like my human design, like a sacral authority. Well, great, like 70, 80% of people are this. And so this method can be used by so many folks. Even if that's not your authority, it drops us in. It's like we're pulling our consciousness. If we're asking at the heart, powerful place to ask, whoops.
That's okay.
and then, you know, pulling our consciousness down to the present moment. And it's out of our head where it's like this hamster wheel of questions of fear of the past and anxiety of the future. And instead we're right in the present moment, we're listening. And maybe that's just like 2 or 3 seconds a day, but for 2 or 3 seconds, you are connected to your higher self,
source energy, yeah,
to God, whatever you want to call this intelligence that seems to permeate all things. And so it connects us to our highest yes and no too. And so this is super empowering. And so I teach everybody this as a way to like, this regimented supplementation thing that I run into a lot with clients. That's like, you have to do this, you have to do that. Well, no, there isn't one medicine for everybody. And so teaching people to listen to their highest yes and no, it's empowering them to connect them to what their body actually needs, right? And so, it's a funny thing when we put this message out to God. That name doesn't trigger me. If it triggers anybody else, I don't care.
We've talked about it. It's okay. Everyone should know by now.
So, the nameless, whatever formless you want to put it, this intelligence that seems to be in all things. When we sit down and we go, hey, I want to talk to you, and I'm going to do it in this way, and this is how I want you to respond to me, you better believe you get a response. And that is so powerful. And how often in our life do we sit down and make time for this connection? So it's like little things that we can do throughout the day that bring us back into presence and listening. And so, this is an awesome practice for food at the fridge, for like those big questions, for little ones. And I have so many silly little things.
You use it for everything.
Yeah. Literally. So a fun one was, I was like online one day and like getting these shirts that I wanted, and I was like, and I was about to like just order them and get them. I was like, and my body test was a no, and I was like, come on. So I did it again.
Come on, buddy.
I did it like 3 times, and it was no. And I was like, well, why? I have the money for this. These are what I want. Yeah. Like, why shouldn't I get this? Yeah. And so I was like, I don't have time for this. I shut the laptop, walked away. The next day, I get this email from the company. It's like our annual sale, where it's like 30% off. And
God.
Whatever. And I'm just like, very clever. You know what I mean? Whatever this intelligence is seems to be very clever and seems to have a sense of humor.
Oh, it totally has a sense of humor.
Yep. It seems to be full of surprises. And honestly, like, if we are God, I would want to receive stuff in a really clever way. You know what I mean? Yeah. I would want surprises. Like, think about how you plan your day. Does it ever go that way? No. It never 100% goes that way.
And life doesn't have to be so serious all the time.
No. And we thrive on like surprise and like, pivot. You know what I mean? Like, that's the exciting part of life, the juice. You know what I mean? Where like, you don't know what's going to happen ever. Like, I never meant to be this.
Yeah.
I only meant to like figure out what happiness was for me and then do that. And the best I could come up with, I don't know if we even talked about this before, but the best I could come up with was like, okay, it's not things, it's not people, it's not socioeconomic status, all of these things can like go, right? And so what is like the everlasting? Like, what can you find like joy and happiness in for the longest amount of time? And the best I could come up with was just doing what I was passionate about, right? Because I noticed when I was just doing what I was passionate about, and not out of like, I'm going to get paid for this or anything like that, just doing it for the pure joy of it, oh my God, feels like you won the lottery. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was just picking mushrooms, and I couldn't stop learning about them. Fascinated, and I couldn't stop talking about them. I'm like, I can eat these medicine, blah, 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 And then I figured out, okay, when I'm doing what I'm passionate about, and then I can give that as a gift to others, or it's some way that's of service. And like, huge thing for me, a lot of Virgo placements, service. I came here to do this. If I can do both of those things, then it's like this, never-ending cycle of like joy and happiness and passion. And I'm just driven by that. And so that led me to like what I'm doing today. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but I feel like completely fulfilled and happy, and like I'm almost like living out my dharma or whatever it is just by living my passion, just by living my joy. I think most people don't get the time to actually stop and look at these things. They're too busy and
just whatever in the rat race.
Yeah. And it's a real survival mode. You know what I mean? And survival mentality, which is also victim mentality. Yeah. And so the survival mentality says something happened in my life that I had no control over, and so I had to survive.
And I'm going to let it identify me, though, now,
That's
too.
it.
Even if it happened ages ago, it's like, okay, it can still be here and living in your body, but like, you're the one that's choosing in this moment to still allow it to affect you to the degree that it is.
For sure. And that attracts more, and people have groups on Facebook and stuff like that where they're just like feeding each other the victim. And then you've got like the whole victim mentality being like, I mean, so much in the last 4 or 5 years.
And then people wonder why they're so sick.
Yeah. And so, victim mentality says to the universe that, like, I'm not in control. I'm not sovereign. I'm not free.
I'm giving my power away to everything
right.
around me.
That's right. And so what is the opposite of that? And that's like sovereignty and like mind, body, and spirit. And with sovereignty, it's like the idea that you're a conscious creator of your reality and subconscious, right? And so that means you have to take radical responsibility for all the creations in your life, which...
Good and bad.
Yeah, which freaks most people out.
Yeah.
And like, dude, there's certain things that I couldn't even fathom creating that some, like, for example, women have created in their life, or clients, and that is their greatest work and maybe their greatest karma, to accept like the lesson that you brought in for growth. It's like, instead of why is this happening to me, it's what is this here to teach me? And I feel like, there's so many people that are like, oh my God, when we talk about it all the time, oh my God, I manifested that crystal or that car, or that job. Like, yes, that was all me. But as soon as like somebody comes that like aggravates them or triggers them or like whatever, it's like, you need to leave or go, or you're bad. You know what I mean?
It's your fault.
That's right.
And you're like, but you brought this person, this situation would not be in your world if it wasn't for something going on here. So acknowledge that. And it's like, and then you can choose to set a boundary with that person, but not blame or shame, and then be like, do that inward work of like, oh, what am I doing that's attracting this weird energy that I obviously don't like?
Beautiful. Yep.
Yeah.
And so what is the lesson in this? It doesn't matter the person. And what I believe too is that the lesson will get louder until we really choose to face it,
Absolutely.
And that's all I know. It's just my life experience, and it's like different people, different faces, different names, same
situation,
lesson.
same pattern.
There you go. And so it's about identifying the lesson and like really moving towards it. Oftentimes when we're triggered, that's actually a really good thing, and people want to blame the other for that. But a trigger has nothing to do with the other.
It's a teacher.
It's triggering something from our past. You know what I mean? So the little boy, the little girl that was hurt or pushed away or didn't get enough attention or whatever it was, is triggered by that. So anytime we're judging the other, it's that finger goes right back in. Yeah. And so awesome. This is what like the monks who sit up in the caves and just meditate all the time, they get giddy when they get triggered or something comes up for them, because they understand that that is like the greatest opportunity for like evolution and to know oneness and to like get through like the ego or whatever the things are, to access that, And so, I mean, they even talk about like the greatest time for evolution is like when there's a lot of like strife and turmoil in like the whole. Oh boy, have we had that.
Yeah.
For the last 5 years.
Going through so much victimization mentality and all of that right now. And it's disempowering, but also those of us that see it for what it is and have been doing that work of like, yeah, but I'm not going to buy into that victim state anymore. And it's only by doing the work right here that we can start to affect it on a collective
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
because it's like it seems so outrageous. Like most people, right? They're like, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? It's like, here,
baby, it's right inside you.
It's right inside you. It's right here. This is what you can do. And yeah, but that, like you said, that's hard for people to look. Like, it's easy to look at the good stuff that we attract, but we did have this conversation where it's like that I've had with some people where it's just like, we have all caused pain. We have all caused hurt and have attracted not so great things into our world. And so to take radical responsibility for how we're being and really look at that within ourselves so that we can dismantle a pattern. And what a gift that we get to do that, because then how much better can you show up to the world, into what you're here to do, into your dharma, into your work, into how you're helping people, by looking at that stuff. It just helps you show up better. Like, people don't want someone who's, you can tell when people are being authentic, right? And when they're not, and those that have like been through this stuff and then are like sharing their stories, and it's like you can feel that, and it's like, oh, I resonate, and like now I'm gaining wisdom from that. But the people that haven't truly gone through stuff and come out the other side and also like taken responsibility for things, it's like you can feel that and see that, but they're still wanting to like share about themselves or share their story because they think they should, or they're trying to get some kind of fame or recognition. Like you can feel that.
Oh yeah,
It's
you're just regurgitating stuff you read in a book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Versus like,
this is the wisdom I gained from my deep dark night of the soul.
And when you do that, when you go to those really deep levels, you accept all of those parts of yourself, you know, not just this Facebook, you know, life of like happy, joy, whatever. It's like we came here as a being to experience it fully. And then when you meet the other, you can meet them in all those areas. And that's like where authenticity and true connection comes from, is like understanding that the grief, the sadness, the pain, the loss, like it's ultimately like one of our greatest tools for connection, you know, authenticity in particular. And that means, you know, knowing yourself to that point, right? Doing the personal work you're talking about, and then showing up that way in front of the other, you know? And so like, for me, just my own personal things, seeing as I'm here and we're talking about me. It was pretty powerful the past 5 years because my like, I guess you could call it a trauma response, or just like how I learned to navigate in the world being an extremely sensitive being, right? So when I was a kid, it was like walking into a room, I could feel everybody's feelings. Like I've always been sensitive to like, I know what they're going through. And I would even say stuff that was like the darker thoughts in their mind. It would freak people out. Cool, you know? So how I learned to feel better, right? Because all I wanted to do was feel better when these people were feeling all these things. So I'd crack jokes, have fun, you know what I mean? And so they would get laughing, and then the room would feel better to me, and I'd be fine, you know? And so whatever you want to label that as was one part of it. Wait, where the hell was I going with this? Oh, here we go. So I was learning how to navigate the world being a very sensitive person. And so part of that like rolled over into like saying things that maybe weren't what I believed to be true, but what I thought people wanted to hear. Do you know what I mean? And so like eventually I got these groups of friends where like they didn't even really know me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't even really know myself at that time.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this like, oh, I care so much about feeling good and being attached to this, the happy, joy, whatever side, that I would say things that weren't who I truly was. And so, you know, the whole, whatever you want to call the last 4 or 5 years started. And I was faced with this thing where I was like, oh, I don't believe a lot of these things that are socially and culturally accepted, that are being, you know, pressed in the media and stuff like that. And so...
But you have a whole culture of people that thinks that you are this.
Yeah. And so I was forced to, and I picked a really interesting time to like speak out and speak my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On like what true health and wellness was, doing my best to share that in a good and positive way. And it was extremely challenging, but it was beautiful in a way because it connected me to this part of myself that I had neglected for so long.
It allowed you to be really true.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is what I stand for right here.
True to my little boy who lives in my belly. And, you know, just true to myself. And boy, it weeded a lot of folks out that were in fear, you know, that were in judgment. You know, I dealt with a lot of like backlash or whatever you want to call it, but at the same time, it was all worth it for me because, you know, it also connected me to all these folks that were on that same vibration, same understanding, you know, same heart-centeredness of like, hey, you know, and it was like, I remember it fondly. This was like 7 years ago when I took the time off to figure out what happiness was. I also noticed, like I was looking at my life, was like, I noticed the times when I made decisions out of fear, and then I followed that down, and the result And then I noticed the times I made decisions out of like my highest love and joy and passion, I followed that result. And I promised myself in that moment that I would never make another decision out of fear. And so that hit again. And so like, why was I afraid of like speaking my truth?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
Where does that come from?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and so trace that back to, and that's all it is. It's like our blueprint of our lives is set up around 0 to 14. And like scientifically, it's like, hey, our nervous system is being set up at that time to respond to stimuli. And we can keep responding to stimuli the same way indefinitely, numbing ourselves with all types of drugs and alcohol and screen time and sex and, you know, you name it. Like there's a lot of options nowadays. And so moving back to those times, find out that blueprint of like where we learned what masculinity means, femininity, how relationships work, you know, self-worth issues. It's all around the family unit.
Always.
Right?
And you take on everything that like your mom, your dad, ancestors, all of it. So it just starts to, you're not just dismantling stuff from you, it's ages and generations old, which is why this stuff is so challenging. And it's a layer. It's not just, oh, I did that thing. I think I used to like originally fall into this. I was like, oh, I did that thing, so I feel so much better now. Everything's great. And then you're like, oh, awesome. And then another layer comes up and you're like, what the fuck? Where did that come from?
But I already worked on this.
But I did that already. Why is the same pattern repeating?
That's it. And, you know, maybe it's, and we change this, we talk about this too, but like, it's that drop in the pond, that ripple effect that goes out through like maybe even timelines, but definitely like friends, family, community. It's like when you change yourself from within outwards, no longer vibrating at that same wavelength, that's how we affect others. If we are electromagnetic beings first, it's like we are now accessing that level. And so when we go to our friends, family, community, they have like two options is like to
meet you there.
Yep. Or exit. That's authenticity. You know what I mean? That's the greatest gift you can give anybody if you truly want to connect with anyone. And so also with like, if you want to change the world, doing this, the personal work, you know, rewiring the nervous system. You know, when we do stuff like this, like there's a lot of different medicines you can use for this. A really popular one is the, you know, the psilocybin avenue. You know, it's become a very popular thing, especially in Oregon with the microdosing stuff. You know, it's the one medicine I've found, I don't know anything else like it, that, you know, creates or tells new neurons to fire. Yeah. Right? And so when we start playing around with this stuff, it's like, okay, when your nervous system was set up, all of these things were going on. You didn't have the tools to navigate them at the time. Maybe now you do, you know? And so if you start shaking up your nervous system, right, all of those old things come up to be looked at. And that's really good stuff. And so when it does come up, it's about leaning into it, you know, taking that time to slow down and feel things. What I've found is like it has nothing to do with, you can analyze your shit till the cows come home.
It's not going to do anything.
Excuse my French.
No, you're fine.
But it's not, you're right, it's not going to do a damn thing. This is like beyond the mind. And so moving into the body and feeling things so deeply and just allowing those images or whatever to come through without trying to put them in a box or think about it at all, you know what I mean? Just
judge it or place it, but just like let it be. Just like let the flow come through and be the observer of everything that's there. Because for so long it's been shut down, and it's just happy to be like, oh, you're willing to see me now and acknowledge me. You don't have to cling to it. Floodgates. Yeah. We don't have to cling to it, but we do tend to do that too, especially if something really painful comes up. Then it's like, oh, that thing. But it's like if you can just.
Oh, and identifying with it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as like the...
I am this person, this happened to me, this
survivor.
Is me.
Yeah. But, and what's really fascinating too, and like what I've realized in my own personal work and work with people for like 14 years or something is that there's... all these things show up as symptoms, right? Whether that's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. And so they're just trying to get our attention to say, hey, there's a deeper root cause here.
Something's off here.
For sure.
This is for you to pay attention to.
Yes, and it's grabbing your attention. And so the physical, I believe...
now before I start screaming at you.
Yeah, and so that's the scream, is the physical. Because it's the last line of defense for any of those other things to talk to us. Because the other three are easy to push down and push away. And it's our American culture to never stop moving, run from our thoughts, you know what I mean? Drink as much coffee and then pass out with something else, alcohol. You know, so when we slow down and we're present, like that's when it gets juicy. And how does our body stop us so that we slow down and get present? Well, here's that thing, you know, maybe it's like, I don't know, whatever, but the big C, the cancer, the scary thing. You know, where does that come from? Well, there's a lot of factors nowadays, poisons out there that could be it. However, when it does happen, you're not moving and shaking the world. You're thinking about your mortality, forgiveness, your childhood, your parents, and it slows you in your tracks. And you have this opportunity to shift the perspective, which is the heart of all healing. Whether you go to a doctor and you're like, I think it's this, and they take an x-ray and like, nope, it's not that. You're like, boom, good. Or you go do ayahuasca and you have this shift in perspective of like what actually happened to you when you were a child. You know what I mean? And then all those physical elements go away. And I've seen this so many times in my own work and work with clients, is like when they start doing that personal work, the mental, emotional, spiritual, when we find that root cause, everything else shifts.
Starts to shift instead of, but this is like the problem, right? Is like people are like, oh, I have cancer, let's say. So like, yes, all these things are coming up from childhood or whatever, but I could focus on that and go that direction, or I could focus and put all my energy on going to the doctor and hyper focusing in on this issue and like, what medications am I on and all of this. So like people choose to go and distract in that direction, and that's part of the big issue is it's like there's a whole nother distraction there. It's not just like, oh, this comes in and you don't have any other choice but to lean into these emotional spaces. You have a whole nother distraction.
For sure. And that two thoughts come up with that too, is like, one is like the Band-Aid on the bullet wound. The wound is still festering underneath. And so any type of like pharmaceutical you're going to take, especially when it comes to like emotional stuff, right, is just that. And like the wound is festering underneath. And so when you stop taking that numbing agent and you take it away, well, there's that even grosser wound that's even louder and more aggressive and comes at you. So my own thoughts on that. The other thing is, you know, identifying with a diagnosis. And so if you are a conscious creator of your reality, and you start telling yourself and everybody that you have ADHD or I have cancer or like whatever it is, like you are speaking that magic into the world.
Yeah, your words are spells.
For sure.
100%.
And so when you repeatedly do that, the universe doesn't know no. It doesn't.
All it knows is what you're speaking.
That's it. And so
what are you speaking?
Getting really clear on that, you know? And so I have these people that show up as like one-on-one. I was like, okay, well, first of all, like, let's stop saying this to ourselves, right? Because just because Western medical can diagnose something doesn't mean they know where it's coming from, how to work with that or deal with it. Outside of like this very limited spectrum of pharmaceuticals, which, by the way, 89% of all pharmaceuticals are derived from mushrooms and plants. So these things that have an essence to them that come from the earth, that were made by something more intelligent than our minds, are there to access, you know, instead of like something that is made to make money, like for profit, right? Over people, over heart.
Yeah. So why not just go straight to the source?
Straight to the
which
source.
is what you do.
Yeah. And
a little
so
bit of what I do in a different way.
all of it's important. You know, I am one piece, you know what I mean, of like this greater group of people that can help. You know,
that's why we all have to work our magic, and we all have to tap into. This is one of the reasons I love the Gene Keys so much, because it's about tapping into your uniqueness, right? Like, and actually owning that, but like acknowledging the shadowy pieces.
Oh, you're in the Gene Keys?
Oh, I'm big into the Gene Keys.
A lifetime of meditation.
I know,
no
it's
big
amazing.
deal.
I love it.
It's just the headiest and most spiritual form of like esoteric knowledge that's come through. No big deal.
NBD. It's fine.
Yeah. I actually just looked at mine the other day. That's funny.
I will geek out on it anytime. But yeah, I love it so much because that transmission truly is about tapping into your unique nature and also understanding how that's not just you, but it's also a part of the collective, right? Like there's a shadow. I think it's the 55th Gene Key of victimization. And it's like, they just put out a pulse about that a few weeks ago, and like how you can have that in your Gene Keys, but it's not just you. It's also like
the group.
Everything is also affected by the collective, and we're in this period of great change. And so it's like, how are you working through your own stuff in order to show up in your unique nature? Because as we start to move forward, it's like we are all going to need our own unique gifts. Everything that we've known is going to start to crumble over the next few years. And so it's like, what feels really good and aligned for you? And that comes from like tapping and tuning into that intuitive innate knowing, and then taking action from there.
Big time.
I mean, like, I'm going to leave this other stuff behind because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. And it may be scary. Like, I don't know exactly what my purpose is. I don't need to know what it is or what actually is going to look like in the world. but coming back to that space of honoring that authentic yes and no, it's like, you know, the energy of what something feels like that's joyful to you. You know, the energy of being in a space, being around people, being in like doing work, being in an environment that feels nourishing and good to your soul. And so something that like I tell my clients, because I don't do muscle testing, but I do tell them, I'm like, acknowledging and engaging with that space of the energy of like, what feels really light for you?
Yeah.
What feels good? What feels joyful? And you know, and then like, and if you're disconnected and you can't tell, or you're doing this wishy-washy thing, it's like, okay, take a pause, come back. Like, you maybe think about the last time you were in this situation at a bar. Did you feel light? Did you feel heavy? Like, how did you feel? And this happened to me when I went to
I felt great. I had like 10 beers.
Yeah, I felt great. It's so great. I went to a bar for the first time to go line dancing because one of my friends teaches, and I didn't even like conceive of the fact that it was at a bar. It was the first one I've been to in ages, and I walked in and I was like, what's happening? Like, why am I here? And the whole time I was like, I'm here to support her. I love that, but also I was like, I don't think I can ever come back because this is not the type of energy that my body wants to be around. And I could just feel myself like being drained in a totally different way. And I was like,
wow.
Okay, beautiful, amazing. And like, even though I was there for something totally different and I didn't ingest any alcohol, it didn't matter. Right. And like, there was something there for me that night, which is beautiful, which is why I followed the nudge to go there. But also I was like, oh yeah, that's why we don't go to these spaces.
And maybe that's the gift in itself, is the contrast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so if you're asking people what it feels like to be in these places, it's like, if it isn't good, then that's contrast showing you where you're not
meant to be.
Yeah.
So follow the spaces that feel good for you. And sometimes your brain's going to be like, but that used to feel good. And like, I want that to feel good. And you're like, yeah, but it doesn't. So maybe we don't. And
not the same river, not the same man.
That's one of my hardest pieces, like letting places go, letting things go, letting people go. So that's the space I've been in, is like deep surrender. And I mean, Year of the Snake, shedding, all of that stuff. Like big lessons for all of us, especially those like me that really like to cling on hard.
Yeah, and those attachments in general, and then also just looking at like, well, what part of me feels the need to cling? You know what I mean? I'm looking at this week. It's like, exploring, connection with somebody, and this comes up where I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling this grasping, and it has nothing to do with you. And my greatest medicine for like the grasping was to actually be really alone and to like ask for no communication for a day and spend the day by myself, and instead like hold myself. You know what I mean? Because ultimately there's nothing outside of myself that is going to fill any illusion of lack inside. And I say illusion because lack doesn't exist. No. That is the illusion that's portrayed into, human consciousness in all of these different ways. And so, by going inward and like asking myself what I need, holding this version of myself, I got to see like, the pain and the sadness and the aloneness that I felt when I was an 8-year-old boy, crying in the ground of my room when I didn't want my mother to hear me out of like, whatever that thought was. And so I didn't like wail, I didn't yell out, but I needed her so badly.
I know exactly what you mean.
Interesting, right? And so I got to hold that part of myself, and oh boy, that was a lot of fun. And to the point where like I was even apologizing and like made amends, and like, had this vision at first of him like curled up on the floor with a carpet where I was holding him. And through this process, at the end of it, like this vision of him kind of like hugging me around the waist now. And I was just like, got it. Like, what do you need? You know what I mean? Fascinating. So again, like when we are like seeking like validation, whatever it is from outside of ourselves, ever grasping, we know to take that and move that back inward, because there's something inside of us that's telling us that we're not enough, we don't have enough, or whatever it is. I see this a lot even in consumption. It's like folks that are filling themselves with like ayahuasca journeys and mushrooms and stuff like this, and like, yeah, that's great. Are you getting the message?
Are you integrating it?
Yeah, which is a huge thing. Like, are you actually like taking this into real time and like
changing your life, making the change? Or are you just doing things over and over again?
For the sake of doing it, And not for nothing, like these medicines, on this like parasympathetic sympathetic scale, what they're doing, you can test this, is like even psilocybin microdosing in small amounts, is it's throwing you into the parasympathetic. And this feels like your whole nervous system is electrifying. You'll meet folks that are like, whoa, you know, and you can feel the anxiety coming off of them. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because we have to shake it up and go out of center, right? To rewire and go back in, you know? And our nervous system is not the only neurological network in our body. It's one of them. Our brain is another. Our gut, hundreds of thousands of neurons that, you know, other cultures, it's like our second mind. And then our heart, right? You familiar with Heart Math Institute?
I am.
Love those guys.
Love those guys.
They found out that we've got about 60 to 90,000 neurons. They call them sensory neurites if they're not connected to the brain, which they aren't. You know, they fire independently of the mind. And they found out that they're firing based on feelings and emotions. Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
so
of
fear, you know, anger, all that stuff, they're disconnecting, and then love, joy, passion, connection, you know? The other thing too, and you were bringing this up a little bit, like a really cool study that they did, and this comes back to like listening immediately and acting, right? Is like they did a study on like how, you know, which registers first, the brain or the heart when they're stimulating. Do you know this one? Well, they sat down a bunch of people in front of screens and they put like electromagnetic registers on the heart and the brain, and then they started putting images up on the screen of like a meadow and like a bunny and then a guy with a gun, you know, to like get the response. And ends up, shocker, spoiler alert, the heart reacts before the brain, right? We're talking like half a second, you know, so there's that window where like you get this you know what I mean? Like body testing is a way to access it, but we all get that. And then half a second later, the mind shows up to tell us all these reasons why or why not that can happen and what needs to happen. So, you know, that's not God.
No.
That's the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Right?
So again, it's like even the second that you notice that going on, it's like, okay, but what did this say?
What was the initial?
Yeah.
And so it's about tapping into that and then acting from that. Because they actually showed that like the heart registered so quick, it registered like milliseconds before the image came up. And so there's something
able to intuit.
There's something inside of us that knows what's going to happen before it even happens.
Yeah.
You know, and so how do we how do we slow down and access that? You know, little practices like when you're driving in your car, it's like, are you fiddling with your phone? Where am I going to go? Or are you at a stoplight, like breathing up your back on the in, breathing out down the front, like rotating your energy, maybe seeing some like white light with that too. And like, wow, that took me like all of 5 seconds. I'm in my body, I'm listening, I'm present, I'm feeling things deeply, you know, instead of like forward and backward.
Stressed out about the traffic or where I'm going to go, or my to-do list or all of that. It's like all that's going to exist.
None of those things even exist.
No.
The past and the future.
What's right here right now?
She gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I found like, you know, people get really excited about like, I'm going to change my whole life and New Year's resolutions and blah, 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 you know? Doing that a lot here. But I found that like the best way is just like little tools in the tool belt. Yeah. It's like the Batman belt.
Yeah, you just gotta so that you can resource when you need to, and you just keep putting things in there, and sometimes things will be for later, or like maybe you're like, I don't actually need this anymore, and then, like thank you, and also like I've got new things and new ways to self-resource, and I love my tool belt. It's amazing.
There's pieces everywhere too.
Always.
Like I've never been one to be attracted to like one school of thought or one lineage. I'm actually have kind of an aversion to that, where I was just like, okay, if some dude meditated for a while, got this download,
it's still limited.
Why couldn't I do that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. However, there are pieces everywhere. Like, you know, for example, like I go to Kirtan, I don't care about what any of the words mean. I know how I feel when I get there, know how I feel when I leave, you know? So similarly, there's been pieces of teachings like throughout my life, and it could be simply sitting next to an old person at the park and listening to them talk. Yeah. You know what I mean? The guru is everywhere. That it's like, oh, that makes sense to me. And that goes in the belt. You know, and so little things that pop up when I start like pointing the finger and judging. It's like, oh, that goes right back in. Like, what part of me is judging that
we
part
don't have
of
to
me?
pay for really big courses and go on multi-day retreats?
You can. Those are
I
fun.
mean, you can. They are.
Yeah.
They're super fun. Yeah. And read all the most spiritual texts ever. But like.
Okay, I'm not gonna tell anybody what to do, and I feel like there's a path for everybody.
Yeah.
And some
following
folks,
your path. Like, what resonates for you? Like, even just because someone was like, hey, this book, hey, the Gene Keys really resonate for me. Like, I think you might like it. It's like, okay, great. Actually, you know what? I don't feel a yes towards that. It's
body
like,
test for it. Yeah. Or do you know what I mean? Like, just hold it in front of the belly, yes or no.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of different ways back to the one. And some people do really well with like, oh, this has been around for a long time. It's helped a lot of people. And there's like some discipline involved in it that can be really beneficial, like structure. Structure even benefits me, you know? Then you do that. But it's listening to what your highest calling is and just following that until it isn't, until it's the next thing.
Until it changes. Yeah, my thing, because I did the Shivananda practice, that's like what I was trained in for such a long time, right? It's amazing. And like I was like very strict with it and very rigid, and it like, again, the discipline is beautiful and the practice is amazing. And for such a long time, like that was it. And then it kind of started to shift, and I would judge myself. I was like, wait, but I'm not doing that practice. And even nowadays, it's like, I want to get back into yoga. And so my default is like, oh, the Shivananda practice. And it's like, yeah, but right now something about like that whole thing doesn't fully resonate. So there's like breathing practices from it that I'll take. But right now what I'm doing is Kundalini.
Nice.
And that has been like the most potent and powerful, because again, like that, you know, Kundalini is different. Like
you're gonna wear the white and change your name?
Okay, so at a static dance this last week, I ended up wearing all white, like, because I always asked my body, I'm like, what do you want to wear? And put on this white top, these like kind of off-white pants, and then I had a white sweater, and I was like, I don't wear, like, you know me, like, I don't wear white. Like, I was like, I didn't even know that I owned all of these things. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, this is a really weird body. But also I was like, white is like purity, clear, clean channels, right? Like all those things. I was like, okay, there's something about this. But it's funny that you say that, because that happened this week. And I was like, oh, okay.
I mean, there is something to it, right? Like white, you know, like everything's an energy, everything's a vibration. White is a vibration. Like some people say, like the highest. It felt great wearing it.
I was like, this is awesome.
There you go, you got a new color.
Yeah, apparently
Maybe you've gone through some Jedi training.
Apparently so.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, like every day, like doing those, because that's what I love about it, is like it brings us right back here, right? Like you're moving your navel center. That is where like you're moving the prana and getting that like vital life force up and through your spine and moving it through. And that's why I'm like, right now my practice is starting right here.
Was that kind of like the Breath of Fire stuff, or?
Yeah, I do it with the Life Force Academy, which is based out of Nevada City.
Neat.
Jaya Dev. They have a whole like online platform.
Cool.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, that stuff's effective.
Highly recommend. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I got into there's like a Kriya meditation that works so well for me. And it's like, you know, one of the oldest forms of meditation. They call it yoga, but it's a meditative thing.
Meditation, yeah.
Yeah, like sitting and like, you know, when you breathe in, you're breathing like red up the back of your spine. And when you're breathing in, you're sucking everything up and in.
It's a root lock.
And the perineum lock.
Your root
And then
lock,
you're squeezing in, squeeze as hard as you can, and then you lock it down with your chin.
Your throat.
And so you're holding it for an uncomfortable amount of time.
Always.
And feeling it build up. And you can feel this, you know, you can feel the heat going up. If you want to warm up real easy and you're chilly, this is a great practice. And then from there, you pop your head up, sniff a little bit more, and then you let it out. And when you let it out, you know, you're doing like this throat breathing in, and you can do the breathing out of the nose if you want, or the mouth. But when you're breathing out, you can breathe out cool. And so like blue down the front. And that's it. And you just do that for a bunch of times, and then eventually you're not doing that, and eventually you're, you know, in a peaceful place, you know, quiet, listening, like connected, you know. Had some fascinating experiences with that. So thanks to whoever listened and got that one down.
Yeah,
I appreciate
it.
That.
Like all those kriyas, just like the most profound for me. Yeah, I love it. Yoga is so important. There's something really, just really crucial about discipline when it comes to spiritual practice in general, right? Like that, like consistency of showing up, which is why it's like, okay, what feels, and not that it has to be like, I've always been like very disciplined, so I'm like, I can do this, but kind of from a space of like force, like I have to, whereas like nowadays I'm like, no, this is joyful for me. Like this actually feels really good.
Nice. You're becoming one of the monks in the caves.
Yeah, apparently.
Good job.
We're getting there.
But yeah, I mean, discipline, yes. You know, the
but not
spiritual
like
practices.
not like hard discipline.
Yeah.
It can be soft.
Yeah,
And
the
then like
gentle
an
version.
era of learning how to be soft and then teaching other people. That's like
How receptive of you. Yeah.
yeah.
You know, then that's it. It's like that portion of all of us that we have that is the divine feminine, the nothingness that everything is birthed from, you know, really connecting to that. I feel like, you know, I think it can be scary for a lot of folks, you know, and
It was
I
really
think
scary for me.
you can trace it back too, because like that uncomfortability between like, I'm going a little off track here, but
okay.
maybe it's important, between like a death and a rebirth, right? And so that can be like ego, personality, job, like moving, like whatever it is. We're not taught to like navigate this in any healthy way at all. And so then we can trace that back to like the big death, right? Which is the big fear, which like, gosh, someone dies when you're a kid. Don't show the kids. Oh, we'll slap some lipstick on them and put them in the ground and then give somebody flowers and then see ya. And so not taught to grieve or to process that or to hold those feelings, you know, so they're kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
And like people that are grieving, they aren't, it's like an uncomfortable thing that we don't talk about.
They're kind of hiding it. Yeah.
And so because we don't talk about like the big death, you know, all these little ones are super uncomfortable for folks too. It's like getting comfortable in the unknown, which is a doozy. I don't have a lot of like, here you go, like tricks for that. It's just staying present.
Just to sit with it.
But yeah, and we've seen this at large, you know what I mean? In the last 4 or 5 years, like the fear of death being like so big because we have lost all connection to like a healthy transition. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the rites of passage, as Lindsay James talked about when she was on, like that's on the podcast, like that's why, you know, we have so many children walking around in adult bodies is because there's all of these rites of passage that we haven't undergone. And so whether it is death or it's like, you know, girls when they first get their cycle when they're young and like men, like all of these different things, right? And then I've had conversations with people in the community where it's like, as boys, they have experienced these certain rites of passage with the divine feminine. And so it's like the way, you know, like they're younger, but they're also showing up in a completely different way. I'm like, I would have thought that you were like late in your 30s and you're 26, you know, but just because like they underwent these really important rites that so many of us haven't. So it's like we've just been taught to stuff everything now. And so now we're here in this place where it's like, yeah, we have to be with our inner child and hold it and like learn how to bring those spaces in. And the big grief ceremony is coming up this weekend that Shanti and all of them are hosting that I'm going to go to. And it's like, so excited for that because I was like, yeah, I've done grieving in my own way, especially more so nowadays than before, but also I'm just like to get to actually witness being in a space of something that's so deeply rooted in a lineage of what these types of rites are meant to be. I'm just like, we need so much more of that ceremony, like all of it. We need so much more of that.
Yeah, I feel like it's coming back too. Like this whole like Pluto Aquarius thing are shifting out. It seems like just from the astrological perspective that I understand is that we're shifting out of, you know, more of this like world-centric thing into more like community-based stuff.
Yeah.
And like you can feel that. It's like, okay, well, with what's going on in the world that's continuously changing, it's like, what can you rely on besides like your center and yourself? And this whole idea that like, you know, I got to do everything myself. Or, you know, it's like, that's a trauma response, right?
I know
Huge.
it well.
I've done it, you know?
I know it well.
and then like shifting into like, well, no, like.
We are a community, we are a collective, we're meant to hold these things together. So it's like, where's the spaces that feel nurturing? Where are the people that are doing that and feel like they're in alignment with that same space and not from a space of, like competition, but again, back to that authenticity and being really genuine. Like, no, I'm here to help and support you and to like be here when you need it. Not just like, I'm not just going to say it, like I will actually be there. And so cultivating and creating that, and, you know, whether that means building gardens and sharing medicine and that it feels emotional space, like all of it.
It feels like that's how nature works too.
Yeah.
It's like we have these
symbiotic relationship.
Mycelium network, whatever you want to call it, like where people are sharing resources and sharing information, and it's the Internet of Things, you know. Whereas we're looking at like these old archaic institutions dying because you cannot have like one thing at the top receiving all of the stuff and everything else underneath fighting for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all a business.
Yeah.
You know, I'm even personally going through a massive shift with that where, you know, I'm at a point where I've just been watching everything, you know, and everybody really is receptive and loves everything I make. There's nothing I can stop making at this point because, you know, I've done that with the granola and stuff like that, and people get upset with it. It's like, okay, I can only make so many things at once by myself, you know what I mean? And so shifting out of that and into like, okay, how can I help my community? How can I benefit my community the most? And it's like, the first part is like setting up a new system where everybody benefits from it. You know, it's not just me. You know, that old adage of like, you don't build a bigger house, it's a longer table type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's how everybody wins, is if we start to like pave the way of like
bring each other in. How can we support each other?
And this is how it works in nature. And so we're going to implement that, and we're going to take care of each other. We're going to show you how we're doing this as we grow, like what things we run into. But ultimately, it's like we're all stakeholders in like this greater version of life. And so while these things are crumbling around us, we have this really cool opportunity to create anew based on these healthy systems that show up in nature. We can just emulate it.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure
It's
people
already,
have
the
been doing it a
baseline's
long
already
time.
there, like the blueprint's already there. We just have to like listen
That's right.
and look at it.
And so this is based on love. This is based on the understanding that we're all one, which actually is the heart of all religions. Anything beyond that, you get fuzzy, you know? And so it's bringing it back to like this understanding that we're all connected and we all benefit when the focus is on the collective like this.
When
know?
you thrive, I thrive. It's
That's
not
right.
like, oh, I'm gonna like feel some type of way about me if I see someone, like one of my friends going to get a massage from someone else. It's like, no, like I'm happy and joyful for you because you're thriving, I'm thriving.
Yeah. And so the bigger vision is like, for me and what I'm personally doing is, you know, to have a structure in town where people can come and they get their consultation in person, not just from me, but like from colleagues that I believe in, you know. Bend is incredibly fruitful with like people that are doing the work, and so they know the path, and that way they can teach it or show the way. You know, because we are on lava, you know, it's like transformation, transmutation. It's definitely
Constantly.
Yes. It's a friggin', yes, it's a bubble, and also it's like a beam of light, you know, struck here. And so having those folks in there, having like the full, like a detox center to help people detox modern day poisons that we're finding pretty new in the past few years. And then, you know, full apothecary. And so it'll be a place where people can come in and be taken care of.
Yeah.
You know?
I love
And then beyond that, the people that work within that structure, my idea of real healthcare is like having all of those people in that building resourced with each other. You know? And so the medicine is available, the detox, the one-on-one person, whether that's an astrological reading, whether that's some deep somatic shit you need to get into, you know, it's all there.
It's all
and then
there.
once this is kind of set and figured out, everybody that's working there is a stakeholder in it. And so when this thrives, we all thrive. And then that money goes back into our local community. And that's the fascinating thing about Bend too. And what I appreciate so much about being here is like the people here want to support local. Like it's aggressive. Like, I was at a market once and there was a woman who was like coming to my table and she's like, those people over there are from Portland. I told them I'm not buying anything. It's just like, okay, that's fine. I don't care as much, but you know, they're really.
But it's like that the spirit that's there to want to like really fully support this community as much as possible is
what's here.
Yeah.
And so once we, you know, have this kind of system set up, it's going to be easily accessible so anybody can emulate it. You know, that is exciting. Because like then we're proving that this can work in small and larger scales, you know, right? In like the community sense too, where everybody wins. And this isn't about like, I've got to get mine before anybody else gets theirs. This like kill or be killed. That doesn't actually exist in nature. That is BS. You know, there's animals that like under
the
duress
competition
and fire.
is the illusion. Like that's the brainwashing that we've been like trained into.
That's
it's
right.
like it's you against me, and it's like no.
You see animals during fires and they're huddled up together
Yeah.
to stay warm.
Yeah. It's all of us together trying to figure out this problem, trying to find a way to move forward. Yeah.
And I mean, they're coming to the surface. It's like, okay, what is it? Pluto return for the United States. It happened last time in the American Revolution.
Yep.
You know, so what that says is that these institutions that are sick and dying are going to crumble, and we're witnessing that in real time. So again, with that, we have this opportunity, this American Revolution like energy, and we got it in America, baby.
Oh yeah.
You know, you go to these other countries, like, you know, for example, and I love Scotland and the people dearly. This is my lineage, but I went there and experienced like firsthand what it's like to feel like defeat and sadness. Like they can still to this day, you know, since all of their clan leaders were basically brought to a giant marsh and slaughtered, they couldn't speak their own language, which is Scottish Gaelic.
Yeah.
They couldn't wear the kilts, and they couldn't carry a knife longer than 3 inches, and they can't own guns. And to this day, like the farmers can own guns, but their knives are still 3 inches long.
Wow.
And so that to me, like just from the outsider's perspective, was like, oh wow, that's what it's like when you've really been defeated. You know what I mean? And so Americans, we still have this like energy and this opportunity to use this energy of like, is anybody really truly free in the United States? Whole nother conversation, but you know, that energy in itself is so exciting and can propel us forward into like these new and interesting and earth-based like communities, like businesses, you know, politics and all of that stuff. Like that's exciting to me. So I'm like, you know, it's just like when that like deep darkness of the soul starts coming up internally, and I don't think there's any difference in it, right? Us looking at like the darkness within, the micro, and us looking at
reflecting.
That's right. And also looking at the macro, and both are important. Like we don't get to know the light without being in the dark, and they cannot exist without each other, right? And so the amount of internal work we do, I believe,
directly affects the amount of work that shifts. Yeah.
The amount of like ugliness and like darkness and all of that like service to self energy that's out there in the world, I believe is just as important to look at.
Yeah, it has to come to the light, or there's absolutely no way that it's going to transform. It's
no change.
Just like looking at our own stuff.
Grows in the dark.
How are you going to shift it if you don't even know that it exists? And like there's a lot of us that have known a lot of these things exist, but there's a grand majority of the population that has been blind to it, just been naively not wanting to look at it, right? Yeah, and lied to, but also like we're at this point in time where it's like you don't like, it is in your face. You don't have the option nowadays to not, because people are going to be like, but what do you mean? Like this is literally X, Y, and Z like right in front of you. And so it's like you could turn a blind eye, but like
you can pull an ostrich
as much as you want, but it's like that's also, you're just going to have to face it later on. So it's like you might as well just turn around and face it and look at it. But it's people don't want to do that because it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to accept that this level of like evil, darkness, whatever could exist in the world. Yeah, that's hard because
caused so much harm.
Well, what we do is we project our own like innocence or version of reality based on our limited perspective onto the world, and so it's about kind of like breaking through that lens, expanding consciousness, being open to this idea that both are necessary, both need to exist. Like, have you seen the movie The Dark Crystal?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Really? Dark Crystal? Okay, so it's an 80s movie.
Okay.
It's I definitely saw it.
Okay.
Dating myself. And so it's this movie where like, you know, there's these dark guys, they're called the Skeksis. This is funny that I'm telling you about this movie right now. And there's like this piece of this crystal, it's called the Dark Crystal. And it's like this beautiful crystal that it comes from. But this one piece that they're using to harvest energy from these little gelflings, really sweet little guys, you know, and the Skeksis look like scary bird things. And so they literally like blast these things into their eyes to harvest their soul. And I'm like looking at my cell phone while I do this and like, that's a funny, it's a little thing. Anyway, so Then there's like these like wizards, these like wise wizards of like, they're good, you know what I mean? They've got that spirit of goodness. You can tell them, you know, how they look, what they're doing. And so at the end of the movie, there's like all this drama and all this, but at the end of the movie, how this like encapsulates is that these wizards like open up their forearms, and they all got the forearms, open up their forearms, and the Skeksis go back into them. And so they accept, you know, they're bringing the darkness back in. And so I'm like, damn, that is a great analogy for like the macro work of like eventually all of this,
the shadow.
right, and all this darkness in the world that we believe is external from us, integrating that back in, looking at it so that it can be processed, because ultimately beyond judgment of like you're bad and you're evil and all that is like, you know, it's compassion, it's understanding, it's like,
Compassion,
oh, what,
it's love.
yeah, what happened to you that would, you know, drive you to do something like that to somebody else, or like, you know, to children or whatever it is. It's like something must have happened to this person to like,
for that much darkness to
that's
be
right.
alive.
And so ultimately it's compassion that brings us all back together. And hey, you know, if the last 5 years was like a big game of like judgment versus compassion, I didn't make it through that.
No.
Like I totally got caught in all that. Like I, you know, it is what it is. Like, but you know, the lesson is there
But
for
there was
me.
a lesson there for you in that space.
Of like, how can I find compassion no matter what, you know? And understanding that, again, we're all one and we're all struggling and we're all in pain. And in each moment, I believe like everybody's actions are just from what they believe will make them feel better in that moment.
Yeah.
Whether that's a cup of coffee, whether that's punching somebody, you know what I mean? It's like, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, and so
I'm just trying to feel better. Crack a joke. Like, I'm just trying to feel better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big stuff.
Yep. And so, yeah, it comes back to that, like understanding the oneness between us all. And that's not really spiritual bypassing. It's like there's always the expanded view of life. You know what I mean? You know, noticing when we're triggered, bringing that back in, you know, owning that, right? If we ever need the outside world to change so that we can experience happiness, we're going to be miserable forever. Yeah. So using all these like really big movements, planetary and macro, you know, this is like the greatest time for evolution that I've known. And I know myself that like, if I'm like in spirit and I'm like looking down on earth and I see all this action about to happen, I'm like, oh yeah, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
Level up and like, whoa, like the action. Like for me, it's like,
Help be a change maker.
my life has been that though. It's been a series of like really challenging moments that ultimately have given me so many gifts. Like it's through the pain, the sorrow, the grief, and the sadness, properly processed, felt, and integrated, that like our greatest teachers, lessons, gifts, and wisdom that we can then give back to the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's how we do it.
Yeah. Which is exactly what you're doing. And I feel like you're such an inspiration. I was like, I know you kind of hang out on the we don't really get to see you in community very often, but it's like there's an essence to you that's felt based on how you're showing up and what you're sharing and what you're doing, and it's felt even if you're not physically around.
Thank you, dear. Yeah, I definitely resonate with the whole Hermit Tarot card. So that's my birth card. So, you know, it's as important for me to have these moments of solitude so that I can understand life as it is for me to come back. And it's like the lamps that the Hermit holds and share that, you know, and it's all for love.
Yeah. Well, and even that piece, like being alone, being in solitude, like we also, most of us don't know how to do that. Because if you do that, then you have to face this. So again, it's like people are just constantly, how can I fill my time? Music, like podcasts, like all this stuff. How can I just fill this space? And I think we've talked about this on so many of the podcasts, but yeah, just like we don't need to fill the space all the time. Like it doesn't have to look like going on a meditation retreat, but also just how can you get quiet?
Yeah, the medicine of the river, the medicine of the woods. You know what I mean? Just going out
for
there.
a walk without your AirPods in. Crazy.
Yeah, don't wear AirPods.
Don't do them.
Don't fry your brains.
Don't get them
Anyway,
going on that one.
Yeah. The hidden invisible poisons. Don't do those things.
Don't do those things.
But yeah, like you're saying, it's little things that we can incorporate into our everyday life. Like if you're gonna spend, if I were in a job where I was sitting at a screen for like 3 or 4 hours a day, I would make sure that I had that same amount of time in nature, whether alone or with others, and that's gonna balance that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is our divine connection is Mother Earth, and so anytime I'm feeling any type of anxiety, stress, like disconnect, like I go straight to the woods.
Yeah, let the mother hold you.
Unplug the phone.
Always.
And reconnect, and that's where the real magic happens. That's where the downloads and the uploads happen. You get really quiet out there, and you can receive a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I wish more people would choose it.
Hey. But it is cool, this town, Bend, at least, like we're
so blessed. Oh my God.
Nature's everywhere. You can,
Everywhere.
cruise out just 15-minute drive and experience what you need to experience. And, for Bend people and Oregon people too, like we're not afraid to drive 4 hours to the coast.
Oh no.
And have moss and everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And the mushrooms in the water.
And medicine
the
and
negative
all
ions.
of that. Yeah, I mean,
Love it.
like we are surrounded by such an amazing natural landscape here. I knew when I was like called to move out here, I was like, oh, this was for deep healing. I also live on my Pluto lines. Oh, that's fun.
Oh, neat. I didn't know that about you. Cool. Yeah, I know quite a few people that live on their Chiron line here too.
Yeah.
But even without those lines, it's like, again,
There's still deep
lava, transformation, transmutation, the phoenix that rises, and you see it. People either get spit out of this place or they try to leave, and then like a couple weeks later, like, hey, I'm coming back. I'm like, cool, no problem, no judgment.
We're
like,
here. We're here for you. It's fine. But I've seen that so many times. It's like people try to move here, and it's like they can't hang, right? Or you come and you kind of get like you're in the bubble, and it's a kind of a thing to leave.
Fascinating to see, isn't it?
Yeah, but I also love coming back. Like when I do travel,
same.
Getting to come back here has always felt like this is so amazing.
It's so good.
So lucky.
Yeah, I just did Maui for like a week, which was, I believe, and they talk about the people on Maui, like, oh, this is the heart chakra of the world. Well, they also say that about Glastonbury. And I've been to Glastonbury, and whew, damn.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay.
I would 100% say go there if you feel called, but with Maui, it's like, it's lava.
Yeah.
And it's also very feminine. And so you've got the very yang masculine energy of Bend, the get up and go. Everybody gets it. As soon as I land here, I'm like, whoa, And then I get to Maui, which is yin, and the ocean, and the presence. And it's just like, oof, Niagara Falls, like, grief of my father's death, my sisters, you know what I mean? All just kind of coming up. I mean, what a gift.
Yeah.
To go to different places and experience that so that you can start seeing that in like, also like the rolling hills of like North Carolina or Virginia. You know what I mean? Like those are feminine.
Yeah.
You can go to these places or yin places where there's water, like the ocean, rivers, streams, lakes, and that is going to help process.
You tap into that space.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so when we slow down, like all those things we've been running from tend to come up, and oof, such good medicine to feel and release into water.
Yeah.
Like one of the greatest experiences I continuously to have is that connection to those things, But yeah, and then flying back from Maui, and I'm just like, yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, I get to go back to Bend and my community, and like that's another thing too that's fun to chat about is like beyond the place, it's the people that are here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That have really kind of held me. Like I was searching so long for like my people, and also, the idea of searching or seeking anything outside of yourself as if you don't already have it will keep you further away from it. Yeah. It's like you're telling the universe that it's not here by constantly seeking or searching.
You're just like, okay.
Finding it within, like knowing what that is, sitting in your place, then it just starts to be served up. And that's when I found Bend.
Yeah.
And then like this community has been extremely supportive and, everything that I've like been excited about and put out, So these people are very special to me, dear to my heart. I'll do anything to help them.
Yeah. It's a really special community.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be here. And I just, what you're speaking to, I was just thinking about how we're in like Venus retrograde period and how my life has been going recently. I'm like, had this just message that came through today as I was journaling, and I was house sitting on a friend's property east of town, so I wasn't in town, and it was just beautiful and getting to look out on the mountains. It's just like so still and silent. And I was just like realizing, I was like, oh, this is, and like Venus, you know, planet of like love, relationships, like all these different things, but it's really that space of acknowledging like it's going to show you like what you really need to look at in that space and how to truly like tap and tune in and love yourself and show up, how to like nurture yourself, and in all of those ways. I'm like, oh, that's why everything has occurred the way that it has, so that I could have this spaciousness to like really truly be with me and have that space of like deep love and compassion, and go inward and do the work that I need to do so that I can then emanate that out and be the best version of me and what my purpose, my dharma is, and get really aligned and centered and strong in that space.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
and have the community to support that. Like,
there you go.
It's just been amazing. Yeah.
And whether that's friendship or like partnership, ultimately, like the greatest mirror for us is partnership, because oof, boy, does that trigger everything. You know what I mean? Especially like levels of intimacy, and the whole thing. And so what a gift it is to have both here. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so in partnership you can learn so much, and then like shifting out of partnership, then it's even greater sometimes too, because you've let go of this like any type of like hooks, right? And then you're left with all these lessons, and you get to look at like, okay, what were the main like teachings here? What am I here to learn from this? What parts of myself did I feel lack or empty or whatever that I was filling with these things? You know what I mean? And then you have this window of time if you really give yourself time. You know, there's serial relationshippers, which like, no judgment, whatever, feels good.
That wasn't me. That's fine.
You know, so, but if you give yourself that window of time, you know, for me, sometimes that's a year or two. It's like you get to like really look at those things and integrate them. But then you get back into the relationship, like, ooh,
right here again.
Go
you got
louder and let's say, you know what I mean? But it's like and then you get to the finer minutia, and like, I don't know any greater way, because I've done a lot of hermiting, a lot of my own personal time of like evolution as well than with the other.
And 100%, yeah. Which is why there's the people that just push away relationships, and I'm like, I totally get why you think that, and also like so much of our wounding and hurt is because of relational settings, and the only way that you're actually going to be shown is if you put yourself in a space where you're potentially probably going to get hurt, but it's for your highest good. And so it's like, but how are you choosing to approach that space? And it's like, when we can take time and do the inner work, then hopefully the next time we approach it, it's more from a response than from a reaction, or like, hey, I need to take some time for me today. I know we had these plans to hang out, but like, I need to be home and I need to hold my inner child and I need to work through what's going on here. And so having those better ways of being able to communicate that maybe don't look like abandoning or being angry and reacting and all of that. And
I've learned a lot from beautiful roommates. I love them dearly, where they were exploring more like open relationship stuff, which I don't feel called to, but I respect it. Like any adventure, like awesome. Learned so much from folks. And so what they shared with me that really shifted was like, you know, taking responsibility for your feelings and like showing up in a relationship to others. Like, hey, I'm feeling triggered. Can you like listen to me? You know what I mean? And just hold space for me to kind of process this. And then there's no like blame, right? And like, hey, that person could feel triggered by what you're saying. And then it can be a thing of like, hey, can you just listen now? And I just want to like process this because I know this isn't you. You know what I mean? I want to take responsibility for how I feel. It's funny because like,
sort of project it out.
That's right. Because in friendship, do we ever do that with friends?
No,
Are
really,
we like, no, it's
like
it's
emotional
rare.
dumps sometimes, but that's a little, it's different.
But you're not like, oh my God, so triggered by a friendship. I mean, maybe you could be. These things can happen, you know?
It's not the same though, because your connection is different, especially once you've had like sexual intimacy. Like the connection is just different. Yeah.
Big time.
Big time.
You know? So, gosh, I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, I will say that that like lesson was so important to me of like really taking responsibility for your feelings, you know, And it doesn't matter whether that's an open or like polyamorous or like monogamous relationship. Like when we can really take it back in and like also have like a healthy form of communication with the other, somebody to just like be there with you while you're going through the process without taking that on or taking any responsibility or needing to change anything, you know, that's a very masculine thing of like, what can I do in this moment to change, you know? Oftentimes it's just like speaking it and processing it out that the shift occurs.
Yeah.
What a trip.
Yeah.
As a guy, didn't understand that for a long time, you know? And I think you're talking about like the pushing people away or like, you know, whatever you want to call it, the avoidant, anxious, like ideologies that, you know, yes, do I resonate with this? Sure. You know, I actually sat down with a partner and she was I thought she was making it up when she was reading out the avoidant behavior in a book because she said every single thing that I've done. And I was like, you're messing with me. And then she showed me and I was like, I got upset that this book knew me better than myself.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is something to look at.
There's something here.
Yeah, and like it was 30.
It's just another tool to help you understand yourself.
For sure.
Yeah.
And for me, it was cool because I was able to trace that back. It was like 35 years of me keeping people at arm's length so I wouldn't get hurt again. So I wouldn't let people in close enough that they could hurt me. Yeah. It's like, oh my God. And I traced all the way back to like, you know, being a little boy. And then again, like my first relationship where I found out my girlfriend was cheating on me and I didn't even know what cheating was. And you know what I mean? And she hands this ring back to me that I had like saved up from mowing lawns and like, I like throw it down the hallway. I'm like, never gonna hurt me again. You know what I mean? So like, oh, that sweet boy. You know what I mean? What a beautiful heart. Like bringing that back in. But you know, also it was like a time where I was like, okay, well, I've kept these walls up for so long. How do I break them down? You know, it's like by becoming really vulnerable. And like that's an everyday speak with people. Yeah. And it's alarming too when someone like is really vulnerable with you, just like out of the gate. It can be really alarming, but it's also like, oh my God, I feel so connected to you. Yeah. You know, what a beautiful gift.
Because you're giving me the real you instead of this mask of like, I'm fine, everything's okay.
The American way. How you doing? I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah, everything's great.
So much rather people be vulnerable. It's funny, the anxious too. I've been recently doing a lot of just, not all the time, but like going into attachment styles to understand myself better and the people around me and like how I interact.
It's helpful.
And it is helpful. It's a tool. And but it seems like one of the qualities, I guess, of being a little bit more anxious or not anxious, avoidant is that space of like, it's hard to be vulnerable. It's scary to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And so I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense as to why you're just like, no, because if I open my heart to you, then you're just going to hurt me. So why would I?
Based on this past, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And so for me too, when I was like, okay, and I don't know, maybe this is helpful for other people out there. I was like, okay, I want to be more vulnerable. Scary. Medicine to throw out in our world.
Also as a man too, though, probably, which is something we could talk about, because you're actually the first masculine that I've had on the podcast.
Oh, cool.
Which is exciting.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. What that even means being a man and doing that. Well, you know, I've had a lifetime of work around this, because when you grow up as a man, I mean, especially on the East Coast, but maybe everywhere, you know, when you show any type of emotion, especially crying, it's like, don't, you know, suck it up. Don't be a pussy, which is actually a pretty strong thing. Don't be a bitch or something like that. And oof, man, that, you know, and especially when it comes from like an elder, it's like, that is traumatizing. And so, you know, working through that, like being able to cry even on my own and not judging myself, and then being able to cry in front of others. And like, dude, these words would come up to me about ugly, don't do it, you know, all these like, you know, negative self-talk that I learned. I didn't know that inside of me when I was a child, you know, that I've learned from that culture. You know, and again, that number that I associate this to is this higher suicide rate in men, because they're existing only in like this smaller plane when we came here to be the full human experience, you know? God, that's awful. You know, and some women are doing this too. Like they can't express anger. oh my goodness, what a powerful teacher. You know what I mean? Like, I've done so much work with women where it's like, how do you express anger? Like, I've never done it. I was like, where do you think that exists in your body? And then you find it in the body. And then you can access it through massage. But really, it's like, okay, taking anger as a teacher. What is beneath anger? Below anger, I've often found, is
there's like shame,
fear,
and
sadness,
guilt, fear,
grief, whatever it is. You know, the little version that's sad, it's a protector of like the little part of us, right? And so you have to go through it. You know what I mean? You can't bypass anger and receive the gift.
Yeah.
You know,
no, for so long I would push that away. I was like, or like fighting, whether it was like in romantic relationship or even with other people, because that's what I saw so much. I was like, no, anger's bad. Anger's bad. We don't do anger.
See, women are told that they can't experience that.
Yeah, and so up until like maybe 2 years ago, where it's like had this big event happen, and it's like there was no way to contain the like sacred Kali rage that came through me. But then I had to continually tell myself over and over again, this is sacred. Like this is sacred rage. Like it is okay for you to feel this. It's okay for you to show this. It's okay.
And oh boy, if you don't, there's the liver and then there's the skin, you know. But some good practices, I don't even know if you've done this, but super fun is, well, first of all, water, the feminine, all that. You can put your head underwater and scream at the top of your lungs.
Well, I've never done that.
That's a neat one.
That. Okay, cool.
Nice. The other one that like I found a lot of women it's been helpful for is going into the woods, like finding a place where you can be alone and taking sticks.
Oh yes,
and
Amari and I talked
them.
about. Yep.
Oh yeah, she's one of my biggest fans for that one. And then also like find a place where you can just scream into the woods and like really like guttural, like let it all out.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you want to take like a kickboxing class or something like that. That can be helpful too. But you know, just the ceremony.
Something to transmute it, and move it through the body instead of allowing it to just like sit and live here. No matter what the emotion is, like it has to find a way through.
It's no different than sadness.
Yeah.
It's staying curious and like, what is like, okay, is there a memory attached to this? Is this something I can trace back? Or just really being present, experiencing it and letting it go.
Yeah.
You know? So for men on the other side of the spectrum of like, you know, showing and associating like sadness and all of that with weakness. You know, authenticity, which is like what I'm feeling in this moment, with weakness. God, that's a hurdle to get over, you know? And so actually like me being truly myself, authentic in my expression, feeling all these feelings is strength. I'm showing people that this is what it means to be like whole. And strong and centered and balanced, you know.
Embracing both sides, the masculine and the feminine.
For sure. And so when I was, you know, how I even got to Bend is a fun story, but you know, basically I got to this point in my life where I saw this repetition of like working these different jobs that, you know, I felt like I could do anything really well. And I would make money and then I would be bored. Wasn't doing what I was passionate about, you know? And I was in a relationship that I loved this person dearly for an idea of who she was, but I didn't love her as
the reality of
the situation. Right. And the place I was staying was beautiful and all these offerings to stay and do more things to make money. And I was like, heard in my head, like, I have to go. You know, bought a camper and took off into Oregon. Didn't know anybody. You know, ended up in a friend of a friend, Amelia's property and sisters, and I had 5 months to just be by myself and figure whatever it was out. See these 35 years of relationships where I kept people at bay and figure out what was the true root cause of that. You know what I mean? Figure out what happiness meant to me. And so in this process, I was like, okay, well, how do I be vulnerable? How do I experience this with people? And my friend Amelia, it was like her birthday, and she's like, hey, I'm going to this thing. It's called ecstatic dance. I'm like, what is that? So she told me about it, and I was like, that sounds so weird. And also it was like, oh, I'm afraid of this. And so I was doing this practice where I was running towards what I was afraid of. I still do it. You know what I mean? Anything that like freaks me out a little bit, like, okay, let's check this out. You know?
Lean into the edge a little bit.
Oh my goodness. And so, you know, I go with her, and it was actually a Eugene dance at the Wow Hall. And I get there and I was like, all right, I'm going to dance in the back by myself, but I'm going to dance with anybody. Like, keep these weirdos away from me, you know? totally judgmental, all that good stuff. So I did, and I'm dancing, I'm having a great time. And then like the song that I perceived as a very sad song, kind of like dropped me to my knees. And so I'm like basically on the floor, like getting really sad, like thinking about my sister. She had passed a few years prior. Oof, and like feeling all of these emotions stir up, and I like open my eyes and I see like a foot, and I look up and there's this woman with her hand out at me, just like pure love, just like looking at me. And I grab her hand and she pulls me up and we're dancing, and she's breathing and I'm breathing with her now too, because she's doing, over and over. She go, oh, and I was like, are you an angel? And so we're breathing, and I think we must have danced through like 2 songs or something. I don't know. All I know is that my energy shifted. It started becoming lighter, and then it was joyful, and we were smiling, And then she just bowed to me and danced away. And I was like, I'm going to dance with people. And so in this process, yes. Yeah. And so what I asked for was to be more vulnerable. And so from then on, I was dancing with people, and they were touching me in areas that like were really sensitive to me in the past, like my stomach and my chest, like, and this is, where my little guy lives, figuring this out, and so with all of this like touch, especially with like contact, at first I'm like, I'm going to dance with people, but I'm not doing contact.
Yeah. That's too weird.
And then like, I fell in love with contact, And so,
now you're like Mr. Wiggles.
Yeah. Doctor
Wiggles. There you go.
But yeah, so people are touching me in these areas, which like, hey, these have direct connections to like why I didn't want to feel, why I felt like I needed to have walls up. So this whole experience with like dance, which I love so much, the freedom of expression, you know what I mean? With no judgment, no talking, no booze, all these things I was asking for, I needed so badly, and all boom. And so that too was just like huge for me as a man, like to express myself freely and openly in ways and movements of my body that may traditionally be more like, oh, well, that's feminine. What are you? Whatever, whatever type of judgment the East Coast upbringing was, right? And to be able to just kind of like access that, experience it, let it go, get on with my life, like shifted me, the experience of touch in these like really what I considered sensitive places shifted stuff inside of me. This was huge medicine and continuously is for me. I can go there and just be fully present in my body. I don't know anywhere else you can do this for like an hour and a half. Turn off your mind, be around a large group of people that are all doing the same thing, and experience whatever medicine needs to come up, and like to move it out of your body, like movement. What an amazing way to like the physical being connected with the mental, emotional, and spiritual. But, it's just like everything. So yeah, that was a big medicine for me. I don't know for all men, but that was big. Some men, there's a lot of really great like men's circles. I don't personally feel drawn to work with men in groups at this point in my life. I haven't been. Again, I'm more of a hermit, and so I do my work internally by myself or with.
But you're doing it, and that's
friends.
all that really matters.
Yeah, thanks. And I do feel like it's representative of like where I am in life. Like I wouldn't be doing anything I am, and this isn't like some stuff that just magically like just fell in my lap, like this has to do, and what I believe is with like the immense amount of personal work that I've done in the mental, emotional, and spiritual realms has led to this. And so now I'm in this place of just really big like gratitude for myself, for my little life, and this really big thing happened this past year where I went through a separation. It was awful. One of the hardest and most difficult of my life, the loudest version of the most toxic relationship I ever had. And it was so important for me because it showed me all those areas of my life where those insecurities, the self-worth issues, like all of those things came up where I was like, oh my God, this is why this has been replaying. And so, I got to see those and transmute them. And I was even like sitting outside, just kind of hanging out, and I get these overwhelming feelings of love. unconditional love and joy. And like my modus operandus is to grab my phone. And I'll send it all out to friends and family, which is a beautiful thing, you know? And I started doing that. I was like, whoa, dude, you never do this for yourself.
For you. Yeah.
I never
had
do.
A powerful experience like that at dance this last week where I was like overflowing. And I was like, when you overflow, I was like, I wanted to go share it with a person that I saw was in some kind of pain. And I was like, wait, but you never give that to you. So here's the space to
It's
do
so
that.
awesome to catch it.
It's so awesome. That's the first time I've ever caught it.
And so I saw that, you remember that, I don't know if you've seen this video of Snoop Dogg where he's accepting an award and he goes, I want to thank myself for always being there for myself.
Yes, I have.
He's thinking me.
Yes, I'm thinking me.
You know, and so
it's
that.
so important though. We're taught that, we're taught to like put ourselves last a lot. And we don't need to do that anymore.
I think that's a very, a very feminine thing too. You know what I mean? Or like whatever. You don't have to be
caregiving constantly, like just always.
Sure. Always about the other.
Always about the other.
And that's the thing too. Like you can get caught up with if you are in this like service to others mindset and heart set. You know, where like if we're constantly helping other people, we never have to look at our own shit. You know what I mean? So that's a little bit of a rabbit hole trap that you got to be careful with too. Okay, and you cannot pour from some empty or half-filled cup, and you cannot teach what you do not know. You know, and brings it back to what you were saying of like, oh, this doesn't feel authentic. What's coming out of this person's mouth? Well, they haven't lived it. You know, that's like true teachings is lived experience. You know,
and you can feel that wisdom.
Oh yeah.
Which I feel so much emanating from you.
Oh boy,
today.
wisdom all over.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to witness you and everything you have to share.
We've been here a while. Did we go over time?
A while. I don't know if it's.
Is there a time?
What is time? I don't even know. Let's see. What is time? Yeah. Right. Before we bring it to a close, is there anything you want to just share? Any other little things on your mind, or you feel complete?
Yeah, I mean, this feels really good. I would say if anybody's interested, if you want to do like a plug type thing, if anybody is interested in working with me, you can access me through my website, thelovingfungi.com. You know, we'll have a little consultation tab up soon, and we're going to have 10 new products in the next year that are all going to be based on detoxing and cleansing.
Cool.
So,
And I'll put all your links in the show notes and everything so people have access to all that. Yeah.
So that's it. The only other thing would be like own your shit.
Own your shit.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the way, you know, and listen, you know. The body testing, muscle testing, coming back to the center, the little tools in the tool belt, you know. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Appreciate you.
Love you.
Yay, love you too.